Hello again, everyone. My name is Kevin Ayers, and welcome to my video series regarding my unemployment experiences. So far in this series, we have discussed a higher level overview of my unemployment brainstorming, considered the basic stages of loss and the concept of ambiguous loss. We talked about how meaning can be derived from your employment and creating your own story about unemployment that you share with others. Talked about the 3 suggestions I have for taking action when you feel overwhelmed. We discussed the travel path, the non-negotiables, successful rejection, and last week we covered vulnerability. If you haven't seen the other videos yet, that's okay. You don't have to watch them in order. Sit down where you are, get comfortable, check this one out. If you like it, check out the other videos and give me some feedback. I want to thank everybody who's given me their feedback, and I do appreciate that. This week's video is number 10, I believe, in the series so far. I have a mountain of notes in my journal and topics to discuss, so if you have a topic that you'd like me to address, or maybe even take a deeper dive into one we've already discussed, let me know and I can focus on that one first. This week's quote comes from Miles Monroe. Quote, "People generally fall into one of 3 groups. The few who make things happen, the many who watch things happen, and the overwhelming majority who have no notion of what happens. Every person is either a creator of fact or a creature of circumstance. He either puts color into his environment or, like a chameleon, takes color from his environment." End quote. An interview question I almost always get asked is the one I hope we are familiar with at this point. Or if you aren't familiar with it, you should probably craft your response before you are asked. Where do you see yourself in X years? How many people say that they want to be unemployed, living on their spouse's paycheck, not making ends meet, etc.? Is that what you fantasized about 2 to 5 years ago? Not me. When I write about the unemployment experience, I use a lot of passively voiced verbs. It sometimes seems like using the passive voice, it takes some or all of the responsibility away from oneself during the unemployment experience. The problem is out there somewhere, and it does not reside inside of me. Much of unemployment is, it indeed feels like it's happening to you. It's a warfare that is being fought on many fronts, and you may find yourself on the defense more often than you find yourself on offense. Truth be told, for the most part, you didn't want to be placed in this position. It can feel like you've traded one monstrous stress, such as a cruel job or a cruel boss, or both, for yet another, unemployment. There are 2 perspectives that I've noticed when discussing unemployment with those who have already traveled down that dark and frightening road. The 2 perspectives are number 1 as a participant and or number 2 as an observer. These perspectives can also include those who are closest to the unemployed. Consider whether you are a participant or an observer when your best friend loses their employment. Can you become a participant and enter into their world, sympathize with their plight, empathize with them, ask questions, offer solutions, or just listen to them? Or do you stand off, aloof, watching how things go from a distance? Often the unemployed don't know what to ask for, especially during the first unemployment experience. Or they don't know how to ask for what they know they need. For the one that does not yet know what they need or how to ask for it, you often find out what you needed after the fact. I addressed something similar to this in last week's video about moving things from the unknown bucket to the known bucket. As you start to discover how to navigate the unemployment experience, one thing becomes very clear. You have to take responsibility for the resulting mess. Every day it seems like you have one goal in mind, and that's finding employment. If you failed yesterday and made things worse, you get to start over today. Maybe your strategy was the right one, but it was too soon to see it work. Each day is an opportunity to make progress, hopefully in the right direction. A difficult but necessary question to ask when you are unemployed is the following. What part of my current situation is my own fault? What part of my current situation is the result of the decisions I have made? We have to filter out all of the things that we believe are the result of the decisions of others. It will be necessary to come back and work through these later, but we can't just lay the blame at the feet of everyone else at this point. We have to really dig into the structure of our current unemployment situation and sift through the hot mess in order to separate what we think happens to us and those things for which we are most obviously responsible. We have to go through the strain of determining not who to blame, but accurately assessing our current situation and what can be done about it. The ugly mess that you're dealing with right now can turn into a beautiful mess over time once you come to the realization that everything in my life is my responsibility and my fault at some level. You may quickly disagree with that, but hear me out. Are you blaming your boss? There were warning signs all along the way. Are you blaming your employer's culture? The same warning signs were there for you to notice. Often these warning signs are screaming at you during the interview process. Blame yourself, not in a disparaging way, but for the purpose of not going down that same road in your next job. When you blame yourself, it creates the necessity of figuring out a way for you to deal with it directly. I have to be the one to fix this situation and the behaviors that got me here. When you start to overcome small problems that you have created, then you start to grow. You prepare yourself to face up to larger problems. Solving these larger problems creates growth, and as you continue to grow, the big problems don't seem so large as they used to. I'm not talking here about faking it until you make it. Faking does not solve the real problems you will eventually be branded as a fake. Come up with real solutions to real problems. If you made mistakes, this is the time to name it for what it is and to learn from it. If you're unemployed because of one big mistake, then the work may not be that hard to verbalize and construct a plan for next time. However, if your situation is due to a lot of little mistakes that added up over an extended period of time, then you will have to do some soul searching. There must be a conscious activity of an active self-inspection, self-assessment, self-reflection based on your current situation. Were there missed opportunities for possible relocation or promotion or industry hopping in the middle while you were still employed? Were you too comfortable and relaxed in a position that was being reduced eventually or going away? Did you have anchors that tied you to a certain region that are no longer weighing you down? Let that expand your job search. If you get stuck, use the 5 questions, asking yourself the question why 5 times to move things along. If you think you have found the reason for a problem, ask why repeatedly until you get to the bottom of it. Solve the problem at the root, not at the flower. I was thinking earlier this week about people who have had greatness thrust upon them. In each example, I found failure upon failure and periods of obscurity beforehand, sometimes years or even decades. If obscurity has been thrust upon you, don't just let it happen to you, do something about it. Even if doing something is just weathering the storm well. Prepare for the moment of greatness if you eventually get your shot. That way you can capitalize on it. When this gets posted, feel free to speak your minds in the comments section down below. Give me a thumbs up if you liked what you've seen and heard here today. Subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so that you will be notified of new videos when they get posted. Until then, take care everybody, and I hope to see you next time.